course.
Thank you all for being here. And Trish, thank you. I was going to tell everybody, we were so thrilled to have you be our intern from Washington College this semester. It has been a joy and pleasure to have you helping us, and we are already missing you. Trish has helped with marketing and communications, with our weekly newsletters, with social media, and I'm already noticing like, oops, it's Tuesday and we forgot to post such and such on social media because Trish had kept us so organized. So thank you so much for your time with us this semester. And thank you for sharing your thesis with us. Mariah and I are super excited to hear more about the other sides of you that we don't know. There's so much that I've read about that you have studied during your college years. And so thank you for sharing your time and talent. I told Mariah we often start with a quote, and I didn't know a good quote necessarily that would tie well, but I thought I wanted to just share. I was looking for a quote from like Winnie the Pooh about the importance of having good friends and good people to help you through things. And I did not find quite the right thing, but what I wanted to just say is that we will miss you, and the importance of having somebody that you can just ask and they'll understand what you're asking and they'll do it. That is just amazing. So thank you for all of that and for being here this semester. Now, I will let you share your screen and tell about your presentation.
Yeah, are you guys able to see it?
It looks like you might have stopped sharing. So
okay, let me just try it again. Okay. Do you guys see it now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so I have notes on a different window, so I'm gonna pan away, and it tells me that my screen sharing is paused. Can you guys still see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Trish Rana, and I am a recent college graduate from Washington College about, maybe a week or so ago. So, and this is my dog Junior for people who see him. So my thesis actually, it's about, beauty in the Philippines, which is where I was born. And I was born in Manila, which is the capital of the Philippines. And this is kind of, this thesis is something that I chose to do for a topic because, my country is still a place I still resonate with, even though I haven't been home since 2014. So it's been a while. And a lot of the things I observed growing up, are things that didn't make sense to me then. But then having gone to, a liberal arts college and kind of being more enlightened throughout the years I've been at Washington College, this is something that I kind of circled back to. And I thought, oh, this would be something interesting to tap back into and then share it with everyone around me. So my thesis is about the skin whitening industry in the Philippines. And I know you're seeing the poster. Okay, so what you see in the yellow outline box, these are the two research questions that I have posed in my thesis. And so at the very top, you'll see, through textual analysis, which is me just, through reviewing I guess I had like 40 some sources I had to read through. It's a lot, yeah. So by reviewing all of those sources, right, through and through, how are different marketing strategies used to target particular customer groups to produce a higher income for skin whitening companies? So since this is a bit more not as formal as like the thesis presentation I had to do, I have more room to say stuff. So, there's a lot of different skin whitening companies, throughout, I guess, let's just say in Asia at least. But for the people that don't know what skin whitening is, right, it's been around actually for hundreds of years, and it dates back to as early as like 1500s, right? So that's kind of the era of colonization. And it's a cosmetic treatment, right? So it's the act of whitening, bleaching, lightening your skin tone. So what you're doing essentially is you're depigmenting the skin by reducing like the melanin concentration. And melanin is the amino acid in our body that gives us our pigmentation, which is pretty much our skin color, right? So that's what skin whitening does. And it comes in many forms of the product. It comes in lotion, facial creams, soap, injections, believe it or not, and chemical peels, and also pills, like oral pills. That one I didn't know prior to this research. So just to give a background on that. So that's what skin whitening products are and what they do. And to really kind of, set it up more, skin whitening is in existence because of colonization, right? So when I mentioned it started around 1500s, as far as the Philippines goes, right? So with the history of the Philippines, it started with Spanish, the country of Spain colonizing the country in the mid 1500s, right? So during historical events like that, it's, Europeans, right? Because Spain is in Europe. So Europeans colonized these areas, so like the Philippines being one of them. And they brought with them their ideologies, right? And for the most part, we can think religion's one of them. There's a reason why a lot of Filipinos are commonly Catholic, right? Roman Catholic. That's part of that. And then also you can see it, the cultural diffusion of the food and the language. So Spanish and Tagalog are very similar in the words. And part of that, is the social societal standards that also brought with them. So people, who are European for the most part, they have these things called aquiline features. So aquiline features are basically like tall bridge noses and like round eyes and fair skin. So these are more Western features, and, being that kind of person with those features in the Philippines, it starts to kind of mix a bit, right? And because the Spanish had such a huge power over, the native people of the Philippines, they set the standards for a lot of things. And part of that is beauty and how we perceive that. And so when you kind of look at that part of history, that's where, how would I say this? That's where beauty standards kind of stem from. And then interestingly enough, it's like, I know we've gone past colonization, um, so the people in those times may have passed away, but the ideology carries on to today. And that's part of, the issues there. So, and so that's kind of what I was saying. And so to answer the research question in the box that you see, the bulleted points underneath are the findings I came across. So with the target particular customer groups, how these skin whitening companies make such a high income, is through visual ads. And that's part of the thing that I was talking about in research, in my thesis group, is that the important thing to remember with advertising is it's a visual advertisement. It's all about the visual design, because an image can communicate more than you realize without needing the words behind it. So it's this picturing and projecting of what could be better, quote unquote better, as society wants consumers to perceive. And part of the visual ads, and the little images that you see there, is billboard ads. In the Philippines, billboard ads are very common. And, it's not for anything too specific. It's more so as you see it, because these billboard ads are huge, like physically speaking. And, that big size of an image, it has a wider coverage for people to see it from miles away. And, I mean, I don't have any images with me, I'm sorry, but, there was billboard ads that advertise skin whitening products. You can't avoid them. They're right there. And then on top of the billboard ads, you have TV ads, right? Part of the visual design. And from the readings I had, it shows these heavily repeated ads with very specific keywords. And part of that, which you see in my theories post-it note, is agenda setting. So one of the theories that we explored in communications is that, the theory of agenda setting, it explores the ways media and other organizations kind of prime and frame, problems or events for their audiences. And then this pretty much controls and shapes public opinion, whether it's on purpose or unintentionally. So it's kind of one of the examples I kind of shared is when you listen to pop music on the radio, there's always that moment where it's like, I just heard this song 3 minutes ago and now it's playing again. And then now it's playing again and again and again. So that doesn't go without, any reason. All the reasons, there's so many reasons why, because they're priming you to be familiarized with that song, the artist, and so forth, right? And so we can kind of apply that same logic onto skin whitening ads. So when you see these ads, you're being primed to think, so one of the things I mentioned with like keywords is that with these skin whitening ads, usually what you see is like a darker skinned Filipino, particularly someone of my shade, if not darker. And then you see someone who's more fair. And then there's words like beautiful, fair, dewy, glowy skin. So in your mind, these are like that's like the theme of the skin whitening ads. But as you see them over time, you start to think subconsciously that the word beauty is synonymous with being white or fair or something, right? And, that's not necessarily the case. Beauty doesn't have to be just white, it should be more inclusive. But those ads are putting a more exclusive idea into your thoughts as a consumer. And again, that's kind of another bigger part of the problem there, because exclusivity, means people will be left out, if not shunned, for something they're not. And so with the theory, right, it's like mass media place like a major stress on the issue of skin color, and how an individual can only ever be considered beautiful if they possess a certain kind of skin tone. And so, and then one of the notes I wrote down is that, the most important part is that the messages that the media put out into society, which comes in the form of advertising, these are essentially a form of propaganda. And so in propaganda, right, as we know, it's a subjective knowledge that's used through selective evidence and loaded language and leading images to manipulate a certain sentiment and advance that kind of agenda to create a certain impression or evoke a certain emotional reaction. And so, what's the third bullet? Okay, so association to the private sphere. So when I mention that, I mean that this idea of, like to be beautiful is to be only a certain color, a skin color. It seeps into the private matters and the private sphere. And I know I put personal relationships. That means like, it's not just like a public issue anymore. It becomes something more private, because in the readings that I read, and also weirdly enough, I experienced these as a child, it starts to affect personal aspects of someone's life in the Philippines, where it's like, well, you have to be fair if you want to have any prospects in marriage, or if you want to be successful in life, you have to look a certain way, you have to look pretty, you have to get far, right? So it starts to affect those parts of someone's life. And there were readings where it's like a lot of Asian women in particular, they would marry people who are lighter skin color, if not Caucasian men. And it's not, to kind of erase that darkness and kind of just push, this kind of like standard for their child and so forth. And it's like, well, you don't have to do that necessarily, like there's really nothing wrong with being darker. But because they're so primed to believe over the course of time, they're starting to do stuff like that. Or like, what's the other one? So growing up, I had this moment a lot. I love to play in the sun, and it's just something children like to do. And I remember I would hear my mom and my grandma say, well, don't go out in the sun. Don't play out too long. I never understood those as a child. We're always out. But there was a reason why. It's because they didn't want me to get dark, because they didn't want me to not have the successes in life that comes with being lighter, right? And so, and another example is like my grandma would say, pinch your nose. Why? I never understood that. And it's because when you pinch your nose, hopefully it gets taller, like Western features. Now, I know I don't mean to call out family members, but it's more so to understand that they're not coming from a place of hatred. They're coming from a place, I believe, of ignorance, because, that's just what they were taught growing up. And then now they're passing it on. And the important part of this research is to educate people that, this does occur, and it's still occurring, unfortunately, but part of deterring that, if not eliminating it over time, is to just educate and bring self-awareness to like a lot of people that these are the reasons why those things happen, and then breaking that mold and setting a new mold that's more better. So, but yeah, and then, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you explained that your, was in this environment where there's these visual ads and TV ads and all of that. So, I mean, they're coming at it from that place of many years since then.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time? It was a bit shaky on the audio.
Sorry about that. I should say you, family and your member are affected by the visual ads and the, all that you saw in society that were giving those messages.
Yeah, so that's what happened. It's like, so a lot of my family, at least I can say, and then the rest of like the Filipinos around me in the Philippines growing up, they believe those, they say those things because they believe them, and because of these ads. And it's not just necessarily the ads that kind of give that full effect to have people think like that, but there's a lot more actually. So one of the other things is that the celebrities, so celebrities in the Philippines, they endorse this product as well, right? And that's not helping anyone. But another key thing to remember or to know is that the celebrities that are promoting these products, they're not necessarily like 100% Filipino. But I guess, I'm sorry, that's not the right thing. I would say more so like, because they are Filipino, but I mean like they're not the representative image of what an average Filipino person looks like. And there is some sort of favoritism. There is a favoritism aspect in the industry, as with every other industry around the world. But they pick people who are beautiful, and to the standards, right? And part of that, that you'll notice with Filipino celebrities is that they are of mixed race. Another term that people would use is mulatto, or mestizo, but mulatto is more of a derogatory term. Mestizo is not. I mean, there's a difference there for sure, but so mestizo population, usually it's when it's a specific mix of like Western and non-Western people. And so, a lot of these celebrities are of that background. And so they're promoting these ads, the skin whitening ads, and they're naturally, already fair skinned because of their, background being as mestizo. But, that's part of the problem because they're not representative of, like I said, the average Filipino. But yet, Filipinos are like, oh, wow, this celebrity, they look so beautiful. And they're endorsing this product. And it's kind of a misleading advertisement where they think, well, they're that color, skin color, because they use that product. When in actuality, they were already born with that skin color, right? So they're trying to market something that's unattainable. So that's another issue as well. And so the second research question that I had, right? So how, through the theory of social identification, does the use of skin whitening products perpetuate westernized idea of beauty in the post-colonial era? And like I said before in the previous question, the bulleted points underneath it are the findings I came across. So the first one would be like this association from one's culture. So, and part of that is non-representative figures, which is what I just mentioned with this celebrities. And then also what I mentioned with like, a percentage of Asian women amongst other colors of communities of color that would marry into, like, I guess you could say like people who are lighter skinned, not necessarily Caucasian, because, there are other people of different races and ethnicities that are just also just lighter in skin color, but just marrying into like that kind of situation to eliminate that darker skin tone. And so when people do that, it does lead to cultural erasure, and because, with Filipinos, they just want to be lighter, but then it's not just a matter of whitening your skin, but it's also kind of ridding themselves of who they are as Filipinos, because they're like starting to see Filipino culture as like, I don't want to be this, this is too dark and stuff like that. And then and that's kind of where cultural erasure starts to begin. And from there, it's like, it's just, we don't want that day to come where it's like no one wants to be Filipino or there's no more Filipinos, because it's just, they're so consumed by the idea of this, like wanting to be lighter to the point where they want to be everything they're trying to be someone they're not, and another issue with that I didn't mention earlier, but like, so colorism. So colorism also occurs in Filipino culture. So colorism is defined as this institution of, it's like internalized racism. So it's like, how do I say this? So it's the institution of colorism exemplifies like how non-whites serve to uphold the idea of white supremacy. And so internalized racism amongst Filipinos, because they start to propagate this racial hierarchy amongst themselves. So it's pretty much racism that occurs within that community. So with Filipinos, Filipinos come in different shades of skin color. You got really fair ones, and you got people who are dark like me, and then if not darker. So it's really a mixed, skin tone. But within that, you have Filipinos picking out each other for not being light enough or for being too dark. And it's also dubbed as colonial mentality, that skin color determines your value as a person in society. And, that's another issue with like the skin whitening ads. I mean, yes, racism is, being perpetuated, but then more specifically, colorism also occurs. So, and then, sorry, my notes. So the thing with the ads, and I wanted to add more on to, is that, ads, are never always the truth of what you see, or what, it's what these institutions want you to see and believe, for the sake of making money off of you, and making money off of you is their success, and continuing on with their business, right? With no regard to how it can affect and will affect the consumers. And so I know I didn't mention the culture industries. So in my theories point, so with media effects, so with media effects is kind of what I mentioned, how ads can affect you as a consumer and subconsciously, which is pretty scary because it's when you don't realize it, which is, when it sneaks up on you. But with the culture industry, so in the theory of the culture industry, it's used to explain how popular culture or any large corporations, how they're fundamentally connected to form this large scale structure of power, and with that, oppression. So in terms of goods, which, in this case is the skin whitening products, and which is how mass culture goes about, it's characterized by, these products are characterized by like homogeneity, which is sameness, like how everything's the same, and then predictability, right? And that's the subject of like how culture industry plays a huge role. And so homogeneity or sameness, that's reflected in the products of skin whitening, in the skin whitening industry, with sales of these products generate like a certain standardized perspective amongst Filipinos, and then it causes like a more predictable, um, it produces more predictability amongst them as consumers, because then they can pretty much know what they're going to think. And then with the consumers knowing like, oh, this is what we should do because we want to be lighter and be better in life, we'll buy the product. So it's an underlying concept that subdues the masses, the common people, and they don't realize it, but when they buy the product, you're not just buying the product, you're buying the idea behind the product, right? So it's never just one thing. There's a lot of things behind it that you don't realize you're picking up just as much, right? And then with buying into that idea, it just further oppresses them as Filipinos, because they believe this idea of fairness as the only way to attain beauty, and the biggest thing that I wanted people to take away from this is that, as I have written on my little poster, the definition of beauty, it shouldn't be about exclusivity. It should be about, being aware of our differences as people, no matter where we're from, no matter what color our skin is, and uplifting those differences and just appreciating them, right? And then it doesn't just it goes beyond skin colors, whether, the ability to just, it's not just race, it's if you're an able-bodied person or not and stuff like that. It's about noticing those differences and uplifting, everyone as much as we can within that global community, because, it's the depth of who we are as people that make us beautiful. And like I said, it's more than skin deep. And yeah, so that is my thesis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trish, for sharing all that. My mind is full. I really appreciate hearing about all the work that you've done. I was thinking about kind of how you started and ended with beauty and the definition of beauty, but I was also thinking about this sort of other assumption that we are all trained to have, I guess, which is that about the value of beauty. Like, you have to be beautiful to be valuable, and even before you get to what does it mean to be beautiful, or how can you be beautiful, like, it's hard to even kind of recognize that that unspoken sort of assumption that, like, you can't even be considered being successful or being valued unless you have some kind of qualities that are defined as beautiful. So there's a lot here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot to unpack for sure. And there's, a lot in the readings that I did that was it was interestingly eye-opening, even though it wasn't all new to me, because the not scenarios, but the interviews that, these researchers did, it's weird to me in a way, because it's like, I went through that, and, on the grand scheme of things, like, I think this is an ongoing issue that needs to be dealt with. And the only way to do that is to educate more people and just have them be aware. Because I remember when we we had like, I guess you could say like a very dry run through of just scraping the icing off of our topic in fall 2020. And it was just like a 30-minute presentation, and it was virtual. Uh, and I had discussion after that with my thesis group. And, I asked them, like, did we know that this existed? You know? And a good amount of them were like, I didn't know this was a thing. And they said, well, that's okay because now you know, right? And that's kind of what made me happy in a way, is like, okay, now I was able to share something new to someone and then help them be more aware about it, and that was like a really amazing part of being in a thesis group led by an awesome thesis advisor, Dr. Megan Gross. She's awesome. Yeah, and just she's really great, and she helped me a lot through, just with the feedbacks and all that. And it's funny because we were sent an email a couple months ago about, sharing an email to your favorite professor, and I sent her this very I would say decently sized message of just thanking her, because she really helped me better myself as a writer, but then also just opening my mind as a student and as a person outside of the academic studies. So I really do owe a lot of this like product of my research to her, and also my fellow students in the CMS department. They're really great. And yeah, I don't think I could have honestly gotten to where I am without them during such a time as the COVID-19 pandemic. So but yeah,
I think
that's so nice.
oh she's here. Oh. Whoa, I didn't know. Sorry, I don't have the camera on.
Oh my gosh.
Wow, so that was a truly sincere compliment.
This is very nice.
That
This project is amazing, and so much comes from your passion and your interest. So take credit for that and all the hard work you did. But I do have questions from Dr. Clark DeReza. Keeps getting kicked off, but she also loves your project, and so she's like, "Will you please ask these questions and tell her I'm going to watch the recording?"
Yeah.
So I've got a couple questions.
Yeah.
The first she asked is, who is the target audience of these whitening products, men and women, and what age range are you dealing with here?
Oh yes. So in the readings that I did, specific numbers. So it's hard. I don't remember the specific numbers because there was a lot of readings that kind of varied throughout the years. But just to kind of generalize it a little bit, as far as like with the numbers being so specific, most of the target audience are women between ages 20 and 30. And then that's like the biggest target audience, but obviously it ranges from like women who are teens, and that's just as scary because, people who are teens, they're minors, they're children. And so, I was one of those people. And I was about 4 years old when I came across skin whitening products. And from there, it's been in my life, and just knowing that. So a good amount of the target audience are women, and, women who are, as young as teen years to 30s, but just as much, men are also affected. And there's also young men. And by young men, I mean also the same range of ages like 20-ish, 20 to about 30s as well. And, there was a reading that I remembered where it was like, with men, when they used a product, there's shame associated with it because, these sexist ideals that men shouldn't be concerned with their appearance, their physical appearance, because to be concerned about that is, what's the word, emasculating. And that's another problem, right? It shouldn't be the case. But so with men with the readings that I read, they use it as well because they're also roped into the idea that this is how beauty needs to be for them. But then on top of that, they also deal with like the sexist ideals of not having to be concerned, but then you are. And then a lot of the men who did use the products used it very, not even discreetly, it's more so secretly, you know, because there is a standard on men being attractive too. And so that's just another problem on top of the biggest one I could generalize it to.
Trish, I was wondering if, have you seen in just readings or some of your research, is there anybody, whether it's a celebrity or just, your generation and the younger generation, even from you, that are speaking up more about this in the Philippines? Have you seen any of that yet?
So as far as people speaking up about it, I'm very active on Instagram as a platform, and I have been following a lot more accounts that are, not necessarily just Filipino people running the accounts, but people of color as well. And there's more awareness about it. And I know it's strange, but TikTok actually helps bring awareness specifically, and then Instagram as well. And I've seen a lot of TikTok creators who are also Filipino, and they're bringing up these ideas of like, don't listen to people when they say stuff like this, which are phrases that I've heard growing up, like pinch your nose, don't go out in the sun, stuff like that. And it's like, and this is getting a lot of, like I get noise as in attention. So definitely, I may not know these people personally, but to see that they're around my age range, and they're also popular, as TikTok creators, definitely they're doing the same thing I am in a way. I mean, they're doing it more visually in a video, but it doesn't change the fact that they're spreading that awareness that, don't fall for these things, because that's not what beauty is, and it's just a way of oppressing you. So you do better by knowing better, right? So those are the things that I see, and also fueled into me, doing this research too. I mean, it's not as simple as a TikTok video, I had to write, but, it's still the same education that I was able to attain through the research I did, but then also sharing that with everyone in the community. So,
and that kind of leads into something I was thinking, which is that, I mean, this poster that you've done is beautiful and so effective, and that kind of a tool, as well as social media and TikTok videos. I mean, it's sort of using the same tools that this power structure is using to sort of purvey that propaganda. It's using the same tools against it. So good job on that.
and Dr. Gross, was there another question?
Oh, yes. So Sarah's second question was, I think you've gotten at it a bit, but are there ever are skin whitening products ever intentionally marketed to children, or is it all through this kind of indirect messaging? Like, how accessible is that messaging to children?
So if it's possible, I can share an image that I saw online. Let me see really quick. Okay. So I'm going to, is it possible to change the screen that I'm sharing on?
You might have to stop sharing and then start again. I'm not.
Let me see. Sure. Okay, here it is. Let me just see. Are we seeing a dark screen?
No, oh, there we are.
Okay, so this is from the same thesis topic, but it was more before I had written the entirety of my paper. So, the discussion is, what do you think should be done about the production and sale of skin whitening products? And the image to your right, so Bello is a Filipino brand of skin whitening products. And you'll see, right, there's Bello Essentials whitening lotion, but then to the right of it is a different brand, but it says Skin White Teens. So there are products that are, you know, pretty much just blatant about who they're marketing it to. And so in this image, you know, teens. And I mean, from there, it doesn't have to be just a certain kind of teen, you know, not females. It can just be any teen, right? I mean, I know people do associate colors to a gender, so it could be assumed that this is geared towards female teens, but it doesn't change the fact that it's being marketed to minors, children. And so the fact that, you know, these companies are subconsciously teaching, you know, children to believe a certain aspect of beauty to be this, that's already like not okay. It's terrible. So that's one part of it too.
I'm also noticing that these products are sort of, they look like they're trying to promote themselves as healthy with the SPF number and the big word vitamins and even the fruit on the front of it.
Yeah.
So I would think that would also help to kind of connect this idea of not just beauty, but healthy beauty with this kind of product.
So sorry, I know I wasn't really showing images earlier when I was talking, which is really hard to, you know, solidify more of my topic because you can't see it. But if it's okay, I can share a different poster, but it's the same topic. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also you should keep it, you should be aware that it's 10 of 6, and I know you have
okay. Yeah, I mean, this is I can be a little quick about it.
But I'm fine. I just know that you have something that you have to do at 6.
Okay. Yeah. I just have to go at 6, but let's see really quick. Okay.
And Trish, thank you for taking the time to explain and teach. And I think it's wonderful, even when you mentioned social media, and you're so good with Instagram. And, you know, I think knowing that there's other people out there sharing the same message gives me a little bit of hope, but I love that you're sharing this message. And you, like you said, have educated your classmates and, you know, reached out to your family and, you know, people who know you now, this circle will spread, and that's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the posters I have here, and this is from the presentation I had in fall 2020, which is just scraping the icing off of the topic. But so this is an actual ad, an image that you see, right? And it's what I described earlier. You know, these are presumably 2 Filipino women, and you know, you do notice that the woman on the right is, you know, just technically darker than the woman to her right, and the language is in Tagalog, but on the left-hand side, you see the word unfair. So with Tagalog, English is very dominant as well. So there's that. So unfair. So the sentence reads unfair, diba? Which means isn't it unfair? And then you look on the right-hand side with, you know, the products lined up, and you don't know it, but it's actually like creams, and then a mixture of the creams and pills. So Glutamax is I'm not sure if it's exclusively Filipino, if it's a Filipino brand, but Glutamax is also dominant in the Philippines. So the wording above the products were, I'll read it out loud. Wag magalit, mag-Glutamax. So in English that means don't get mad, get Glutamax, right? So, and then at the bottom it's in English, your fair advantage, right, which is a play on words. So this is one of many ads that are like this, you know, and you can break down this ad many different ways, right? The woman who's darker has a face of envy or upset, versus the woman who's lighter, she has like this smug look, like I'm better than you kind of, right? And the fact that we can read that kind of facial expression without necessarily knowing the language is just, it just amplifies more of what I'm saying, how visual design can do so much than you realize. So in the next slide, if it shows me, So this is another ad actually in the Philippines. And so this is what Metro Manila looks like, which is where I grew up. And so this is called Snow White. And that one, I don't know if it's also exclusively a Filipino brand, but the woman that you see is actually a Filipino celebrity. Her name is Sarah Geronimo. So I think she's of like Spanish descent. And she's an amazing singer, very amazing singer. And so, she's promoting this ad, as you can see, and it's the equivalent of a billboard ad. So you see the keywords of snow, right? Snow is white, and then skin whitening, potency is their beauty policy, right? You see these words being mixed in, and then you see the woman, or the person rather, just advertising that. It starts to really prime you as a consumer, like snow, she's light, and then beauty, and then it's like I said before, it becomes synonymous in your mind over time, because these are pretty much just the theme of these kinds of ads. And there's another image on here. Let's see. So this one is actually a Bello ad, which I told you before that Bello is exclusively Filipino, and this is geared towards men. So on the top left, it says 10% lighter, 100% more numbers, right? So there's this one's called Bello Men. And they put, I guess, what they believe is masculine colors, because black, but so you break down the ad, this guy is pretty, he's a great looking guy and surrounded by great looking women, but the only reason why he's even in that position, is because he's just a little bit more lighter. And so, yeah, it's everyone's falling victim to this. So you have men who are being victimized by this, and just as much, minors. And it's really, really, it's a big gap of like people being affected. And then you take those group of people over time, if they start to fall for the ads, and it's like that ideology just continues on to the next generation, which is something that we need to definitely deter and eventually eliminate. And so part of the things that I was showing in this presentation is that these are, Filipino celebrities. So Kim Chiu, top right, and then bottom left is Sam Milby. These are the celebrities that I grew up seeing on Filipino television in many different ways. And reality TV is huge in the Philippines. So it's like, if you can do one thing as a celebrity in the Philippines, like if you can act, they'll literally put you in like a singing career or a hosting career. So it's a very lucrative business to be a celebrity there, because then you can pretty much go into any part of the industry. So I knew these people growing up, and part of that is becoming endorsers of products. And and these people are very beautiful, don't get me wrong, right? But then we go back to a topic, and these are more people, right? So Olay is an international company, as we know, and they also make those. And so these people are of mixed race, and I said before, as much as these people are beautiful, it's excluding a certain type of like people at the same time, because yes, they're Filipino, but they're not necessarily the representative of what people normally look like. And so,
I'm
yeah.
Googling some of these people, and these pictures that you're showing us, when you Google them and you look at the pictures that show up online, they're much darker, or at least most of them are darker than the pictures in these ads that you're showing us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not only do they not look like most people, they don't even look like themselves.
Yeah. And, we can put that on Photoshop, right? It's like, I mean, these people, they are beautiful, right? But then even with the ads, it's like, oh, they could be prettier. So let's Photoshop them, right? So they're attacking them as well by doing that. And then, so I'm sorry I didn't mention this before, but so like with Olay, Olay is very popular in America as well. So it's not, in the readings I also had, it's not just people of color who are also like affected. I mean, they're hard hitting. They're like the ones that are hard hit as well, but everyone is, falling victim to this. And by that, I mean people who are also white / Caucasian, because it's all about changing the word, the verbiage of the product. So if you go into your local CVS, Walgreens, or whatever, Albertsons, you go in and you buy, you see like in the makeup aisle, you'll see something like, you know, anti-aging or rewind, or, you know, something with like anti-aging. That's just another word for bleaching and skin whitening, right? So no one's really safe from it, you know. And I mean, you know, a lot of people buy anti-aging, particularly, you know, more so it's, you know, women are on the hot seat for that, unfortunately. So, you know, the stereotype is that no one wants to look old, no one wants the wrinkles, they want to get rid of it. And so they buy anti-aging creams. But the thing is, anti-aging creams are just another masked word for whitening. So that's another thing that I did not realize before. And it blew my mind to know that. And I'm like, why? You don't buy that, you know? So that's just another thing that you didn't probably realize as a consumer before. And it's all about reading the ingredients. And part of the things I also read is that, you know, with skin whitening products, they won't always show you what's on the ingredients. And that's another form of misleading. But also, I'm pretty sure to an extent it's illegal, because if you're not being transparent about what's in there and people are using them, you know, it's just not going to be okay. And so let me go back really quick. Oh, so I know I'm kind of jumping around here. So these are pictures that I took on my own phone. So top left is, you know, Koji-san, which is Japanese. That's a Japanese brand. And magical glutathione, which is glutathione is the chemical, one of the main 3 chemicals in skin whitening. And of course, the chemical aspects of this, like mercury is actually in it. Mercury, glutathione, and, you know, I'm missing one thing, it's blanking. But, you know, the effects of these when you use them, especially because with skin whitening products, it takes place over time. It's not like okay, I took it one night and I'm lighter the next day. It's prolonged use. And with prolonged use, it takes about 3 months for anyone to see any changes. But even then, it could be it's kind of a placebo effect. But 3 months of usage leads to health issues. You know, people are getting a reversal. So they start to develop vitiligo, or the I forgot the word, but it's the opposite of vitiligo, where it becomes darker versus lighter. So there's that. And then, you know, some people are like getting birth defects. That's one of the things. So it's even sad to say that people who are, you know, carrying children are using it. That's another thing too, but it's like, it's being seeped into your body, and you're putting something that doesn't not need to be there naturally. So it does have very adverse effects on the body physically. And so the image on the right, which is the same brand, it's Koji, yeah, it's Koji-san. Someone gifted those to me. Okay. So, you know, someone gifted them and thought I could use them. And, you know, like I said, I know it's very problematic, right, in itself, but the person who gifted them to me wasn't coming from a place of hate. I just want to, you know, make sure that's noted. It's more so because they're so primed to believe, right, this specific standard of beauty. They thought, well, you could use it because, you know, I mean, you're not that light, you know. So they meant well, you know. So it's one of those moments of like, you know, good intention but poor judgment. So
Trish, you've given us so much to think about. Like, I feel like Mariah and I are going to be talking about this tomorrow, and
yeah.
You know, it's made me want to go do some more reading. And I think seeing these slides also really helped just kind of put it in perspective for us, and actually see what Filipinos see and what you see when, you know, you go to the market, which is just, you know, heartbreaking, but also I'm really glad that you've opened our eyes. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And I could keep asking you questions for a long time, but I know you have to go.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I have
But,
to go in a bit, but I just wanted to like take the time to really say it without having to seem so rushed. But yeah, so the next time you go to your local drugstore or any place that sells makeup, I know, question it. I know it's kind of like not always like a good thing to question everything, but question everything. That's one of the things that Dr. Cosma, taught us. Question everything. Sometimes it's not just what it seems on the surface. There's more to it. Like I said, anti-aging it's more than just anti-aging. It's you're bleaching your skin. Don't think that just because you have wrinkles that you're not going to be pretty. That's something inevitable with us as a human race, and it's just embracing those as time comes by. So it's just acceptance of who you are and where you're going in life. And I know sometimes it's not the easiest pill to swallow, but everyone's going to go through it, so
if you're lucky, right?
Yeah.
That's the good scenario.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and thank you, Dr. Gross, for being here. It's fun to see your face, and I love that. I almost like put in the chat like, Trish, Dr. Gross is here, and I love that she didn't know that before she said all the wonderful things about you. So I will say thanks to Washington College for partnering with RiverArts in so many ways, and it's been just an absolute delight to have Trish intern for us this semester, and we have been so thrilled to have her, and I know we will keep in touch. And Mariah, do you want to kind of end us up with a toast to Trish and graduation and all of that?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Trish. And thank you, Dr. Gross, for giving Trish the tools to give us this really great presentation and to do this great work that she's done. And I think I would just taking from what I was hearing from you today, Trish, I would like to toast to awareness and acceptance and thank you. So cheers. And please keep in touch and don't hesitate ever to be in touch with us and let us know how you're doing. We want to hear about everything that you do from now on, because I'm sure it's going to be a great adventure.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Trish, for everything this semester.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks
it was
so
really
much.
Nice having everyone in some way, just communicating.
Yeah.
Well, we'll share the
Great
video
job.
when we've got it ready, and we know we'll share with the Star Center who would like to see. And thank you again just for being here today and sharing this important information with us.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
Bye.